Hey everybody, what's going on? Today we're going to talk about the priority list for 2A champs. I'm going to talk about like the main three you want to focus, but there's also a couple of other ones that I just want to talk about because I think they're interesting and I think you should have an eye on them. I think the first three are pretty set in stone, but again, I think there's some other really interesting ones that are kind of popular, and then one that I don't know how popular it is. I haven't heard much about it since I've been back, but it's interesting. So let's go ahead and jump into it. One of the first three, arguably the most important, and the one I've been hunting a secret dungeon for and just cannot have one, cannot find one, is Dark Inugami. You can get him from a secret dungeon if you can find it, and he's a really, really solid option because the second you get him, and second awaken him, and even before he's useful, but second awaken especially, he's very good. He's gonna be good immediately. And he's never going to stop being good. No matter how far you get in the game, no matter how advanced you get, no matter how much you wail out, Crow is going to stay good, all right? So let's talk about his second awaken version. On the A1, we've got a 2-turn defense down and dots for 3 turns, which is really nice. For the A2, we've got a team-up attack. Damage increases by 20% for each harmful effect on the enemy. And it also applies to the allies who attack together. So, or the ally who attacks together, rather. So, bonus damage team up skill, pretty handy. And then here, he's got a brand, and the damage increases by 50% for each harmful effect on the enemy. This is where it starts to get out of hand. You stack a bunch of debuffs up on a boss, especially if you can already get the brand up and get this attack off while the brand is still there. It's going to be insane damage, right? So he's great, and I remember him being really good in rifts. He can be really good in dungeons. He's really good at a lot of things, right? The brand is really nice. The extra damage is really nice. The team up is solid. And again, he just never falls off. So he's a very safe option for a first 2A because you'll never have to worry about regretting it. You'll never outgrow him. You know what I mean? He's just killer option. Now, the next two work pretty well together. I know that it's a very popular Giants team. And where are they? One of them is Seth, the second awakened Seth. By the way, the art on the 2A Grim Reapers is just so good. I mean, all the 2A art's pretty solid, but the Grim Reapers, man, just looks so cool. It seems like a transmog we'd have to pay for, but you just get it for second awakening him. So I think that's sick. Here we've got his A1, I think, stays the same across the board. His A2 changes a little bit. Attacks all enemies with a deadly scythe and inflicts continuous damage for 2 turns. Always lends a crit if the enemy's HP is 30% or lower. I think without being second awakened, no, it's a hit. Yeah, it's a hit. I was thinking maybe it was like Thrain where he didn't have to hit. But yeah, he attacks and lands dots. And then the A3 here, or not the A3, the passive, increases the amount of damage all allies and enemies receive from continuous damage by 2 times. So it doubles dot damage. Disturbed HP recovery for 2 turns with a 50% chance, and inflicts continuous damage if you attack an enemy on your turn. If you attack an enemy who already has dots, you can't glance. But it's the double dot damage that's really the kicker here, because poison explode. I'm calling it poison explosion because that's what we call it in raid. But like, I guess dot explosion. Again, is a very popular strat to speed through the dungeon. So doubling up that dot damage is going to be very nice regardless, but it gets especially nice when we talk about the third champ on the list, and that's the Fire Pixie. Very easy champ to get, very easy champ to skill up. And when you second awaken her, she's usable in her awakened state with the A3. We've got a glancing, we've got dots here, and then we've got attacks to target. Decreases the duration of continuous damage granted by 1 turn, and then inflicts damage equivalent to that. But in 2A, it just gets out of hand. And we also have some dots on the A1, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but here, attacks all enemies to inflict damage. In addition, blows up the continuous damage granted on each target to inflict damage that's equivalent to the target's continuous damage. So it blows up all the continuous damage. They take it all at once. You've probably seen videos of people just melting the giant with this, right? So Tattoo and Seth together Seth doubling up the continuous damage and then Tattoo exploding it is obviously insane, right? So those are the main three I would say that are important to focus early on. Like if you're wondering, because there are quite a few options for 2A now. So if you're kind of lost and you're not real sure who to focus, I think those three are kind of staples. Some other interesting options are Spectra. I was a big fan of Spectra even before 2A. Spectra's a fantastic champ. I used Spectra a lot in TOA. I used Spectra in Dragon. Spectra has quite a bit of utility even before the 2A. So when you 2A, it gets even crazier. This right here is a pretty big nuke skill, proportionate to the enemy's max HP, so you can do pretty big nukes on bosses. Again, fantastic for higher level TOA bosses. And then here, sends out a gust of wind that has a 50% chance to decrease the attack bar of all enemies by 30%. In addition, decreases their attack speed and attack power for 2 turns. That's so good. First turn Spectra, knocking back the turn meter that much, putting a slow, and then I'm pretty sure the attack break. Yeah, the attack break comes with the 2A. Spectra's great. And again, you don't even have to awaken Spectra for Spectra to be very usable, but the 2A adding the attack down is really, really nice. And that base speed, very easy to get Spectra up to first turn. All right, so Spectra's a fantastic option. Of course, some of the popular ones like Bella, the light Inugami, is also a fantastic option. But Bella is also really fantastic without even needing to be 2A, all right? So Bella's very usable anyway. So not necessarily, I think, top of the list priority-wise. Light Griffin is also kind of an interesting one. Really good in, I think, Necro. Anywhere where there's a dark boss, basically. We've got the heal on the A1, which is cool. Shaman will attack and then heal all allies by 30% of the damage inflicted. Here we've got a proportional to max HP nuke, but it consumes 10% of your HP. Now Spectra's doesn't do that. And then here we've got this passive. Increases resistance by 20, decreases the incoming damage from dark attribute by 50%, and increases the damage you inflict on dark attribute by 100%. That's substantial. It's going to be very hard for a dark monster to kill Shaman. And then the double damage is insane because here we've got the proportional max HP, but now you're doing double damage basically. And then also here with the heal on the A1, if you're hitting a dark enemy, the heal is going to be that much more substantial. So it's a very cool option, very fun champ, I would say, and going to be really handy where it's handy, right? Obviously, you need dark enemies for this one to shine, but a very solid option. Another one that I think is particularly interesting, and this is one I haven't really heard much about, but as I'm kind of going through and looking at him to see who I think is interesting, the Dark Warbear has some interesting stuff going on. Let's talk about the Awakened Gorgo first. We've got the Thrash, proportionate to your own max HP, chance to reduce the attack bar by 25%, and a pretty good chance skilled up. Pretty good for an A1. Here we've got damage proportional to your max HP to all enemies and decreases their attack power for 2 turns. So the AoE attack down, also pretty good, right? And then here we've got an A3, damage according to your max HP again. Attack receives a 70% crit rate bonus and stuns the enemy for 1 turn when it lands as a critical hit. So that's cool, right? Second Awakened version, we get quite a change to the kit. We've got the same A1. We've got the same A2. Now we don't have an A3, we have a passive. And the passive increases the chance to crit by 20%, stuns the enemy when you crit with a 50% chance. So now we have an AoE stun with an attack down. I think this is going to be really nice for TOA, particularly TOA hard, because TOA hard gets, if I remember correctly, I don't know if anything's changed, you used to have to really lean into crowd control for TOA hard because the waves are really, really tough. So you need to regularly lock them down. The attack down is really nice for anybody that does slip through the crowd control. And then it's also not a bad idea to stack dots and stuff. But he's bringing AoE stuns and attack down. So I think this is really handy. And if you get a team that can cycle a little bit, you get some turn meter boosting and some decent speed, you might be able to cycle back around to where he can drop this again before the enemies start getting turns, because it's a 3-turn cooldown. So I think he's kind of a cool option. And I'm not saying no one has talked about it. I'm just saying I've got a lot to catch up on. And in my catching up, I haven't heard much about Gorgo. But I think Gorgo gets really interesting at 2A. I think he's kind of interesting before 2A, but especially at 2A, he seems really usable at TOA. So perhaps we will grab him and play around with that and see what we think about it. Okay. Beyond that, I mean, it seems kind of like ultimately you can't really go wrong. I haven't really looked at anybody that gets a 2A and been like, nah, that seems like a waste. Maybe they're there and I just haven't made my way to them yet. I remember the Martial Cats being kind of interesting, but I really just wanted to talk about the first ones to focus on, and then a couple of others that I thought were interesting maybe after you get those 3 done, because I'm seeing that question pop up a lot from newer players about who to prioritize with the 2A. So I would say Crow is a very safe first option. He doesn't have to be your first option, but I think he needs to be one of the first 3. I think Crow, Seth, and Tattoo are kind of locked in for like the best options for your first 3. And then I think some other honorable mentions are some of the ones we talked about. I mean, Lulu, of course, is fantastic. Bella's fantastic. Like Griffin, Shaman is fantastic. I think Gorgo's going to be interesting. There's a lot of really good options. So I'm excited to get more champs 2A so we can start making some videos testing them. But I want to get Crow done first, but I have to find a freaking Crow secret dungeon. So maybe someday we'll find one. But anyway, that's it. If you've got anything you want to drop below about any of the other champs, maybe you've 2A'd someone that's not super popular and you're getting a lot out of them, you think they're really good, I would be really interested to hear that from anybody that's watching that has that going on. Maybe some champs that no one's talking about, kind of like the Dark Warbear, or maybe someone that you haven't heard a ton about. I'd be very curious to hear that, because I bet you there's probably still a couple of sleepers down there that no one really knows the full potential of yet. So anyway, that's it. I'm getting out of here. Appreciate y'all. Hope it was helpful. See ya next time.